Hello to all of you. My name is Nika Kovac and I'm coming from the Institute 8th of March. We are right now in Slovenia in the pre-election period, and we know that in pre-election period always a lot of things is happening. But right now what we are seeing is the very bad attack on Slovenian sovereignty and the very bad practices which are damaging democracy. In general, I also work in international democracy space, and in Slovenia I noticed same patterns which are popping up around the globe when authoritarians want to take over the elections with really shady practices. We decided to form a team of journalists, researchers, and non-governmental organizations to do a research about what is happening in Slovenia. And I'm giving firstly the word to Borut, who will explain what is happening.
Okay, hello. I will present the results of the research. As you can see now here on the display, if you can see it, can they see the? Yep. So this is the airplane. It's called Hawker 800 XP aircraft with the registration number 4XCNZ. This airplane is a like mid-size jet for 9 passengers. It's owned by Israeli company called Aero Aviation, which specializes in VIP transport and special governmental operation for government and private clients. One flight with this airplane costs like to a certain destination like 20,000 euros. One of the most frequent destination of precisely this aircraft in recent months was Ljubljana, our capital city in Slovenia. The aircraft landed here 3 times, in November, December, and most recently in February. Each time it came from Tel Aviv. On December 22nd, the aircraft landed in Ljubljana at 10:30 a.m. On board were 4 passengers from Israel who continued their way to Ljubljana. They went to the address Trstenjakova Street 8, where is the main building and the seat of the SDS party of Slovenia, and they met in front of this house personally with Janez Janša, the president of the party. Based on the information from our sources, which of course have to remain anonymous, and publicly available information, we were able to identify 2 of the 4 passengers. The first one was Dan Zorela, and the second one was Gioro Eilanda. Now, Zorela is a co-founder and CEO of one of the largest private intelligence agencies called Black Cube. The second one, Eilanda, is a retired Major General, former head of Israeli National Security Council, and also a long-time advisor to Black Cube. Over the past 10 years, the Black Cube has become known for its controversial operations carried out on behalf of their clients. For example, one of the most known was that they worked for Harvey Weinstein. In this operation, their operatives used false identities. They filmed the woman who had accused him of sexual harassment in order to discredit them as witnesses in criminal proceedings. For Slovenia, however, their operations in Hungary in year 2018 and 2022 are significant because there the Black Cube targeted non-governmental organizations and journalists. The method, how they work is similar all the time. They use false identities, false companies, they target the victims, and then everything is deleted, and the material is distributed then anonymously. Although it's a private company, there are some articles and public information available of the cases where they were cooperating closely with the Israeli government. For example, in 2024, the both men that I mentioned before were caught on a meeting with one of the Israeli minister, and they were planning actions against American students that were protesting against Palestine. The visitors stayed with Janša for around 2 hours. At 1:20 afternoon, the plane left Slovenia, and it went to Rome. However, one of the passengers stayed in Slovenia. Now, there are, of course, many questions here remaining. At the end, I would like to mention only one. These operations aren't cheap. For example, only the 3 mentioned flight costs like around 100,000 euros. And Weinstein case, he should have paid the company 1.3 million euro for the operation. Thank you.
Okay, I will give the word now to Philip, who will talk about other cases which were happening in the other countries by Black Cube.
Hello. So, what's important to understand is that we know these people visited Ljubljana, we know this meeting happened, but now it's important to understand that the situation in Slovenia, what we're seeing right now online with the leaked, with the released, not even leaked, recordings of sting operations, is that these look exactly the same as previous Black Cube operations. So all of the stuff that I'm going to talk about is available in the report in more depth. It's been reported on thoroughly. Just for people to get a bit of context, I want to talk about a few cases. One is the case of 2017, where Black Cube targeted a retired Justice Frank Newbold to try to entrap them into saying anti-Semitic things. They were unsuccessful, and what's interesting is that there's a court record saying that these practices are unacceptable. The next, I think, interesting case is in 2006 from Romania, which is, as far as we can tell, the only criminal conviction of people working for or running Black Cube. Black Cube was hired to gather corruption material on Laura Kövesi. She was Romania's chief anti-corruption prosecutor. Today, she's the head of EPPO. What's interesting here is that one of the founders of Black Cube actually got convicted and was handed a 35-month suspended sentence. And he admitted to Israeli operatives that he personally, to Israeli investigators, sorry, that he personally instructed 2 employees to try and hack into Ms. Kövesi's email accounts. Also, we have to talk about the 2016 and 2017 Harvey Weinstein case, where Harvey Weinstein hired Black Cube to do 2 different things. One is to try and entrap and discredit victims of sexual abuse who were reporting his crimes. And secondly, they actively monitored the journalist Ronan Farrow, who reported on the story for The New Yorker. Now, the examples that we want to focus on the most, however, are the examples coming from Hungary. So both before the 2018 and the 2022 parliamentary election, Black Cube operated in Hungary. in the same with the same methods as we currently see in Slovenia. So they established fake identities, fake companies, fake online presences, and then lured people of interest. In the Hungarian case, these were NGO members, journalists. In Slovenia, it's people who are close to the current government or perceived close or friends with the people who are currently in power in Slovenia, and then released these videos online anonymously, and then distributed them through media close to Orban. So I'm just going to play you a short video for you to get an idea of how this production looks like, because I feel that then you can appreciate that it looks exactly as the ones that are currently being released in Slovenia.
Yeah, because you never know in these cases that is this a real collaboration? Is the journalist independent enough? Or did he get a very good invitation with to a good hotel? So how much did you offer to him to write what you want to hear back from the media? No one can really control this in these cases, so it's very hard to be transparent. In this case, if you do not offer anything else, that's the topic.
And have you seen this a lot in your experience, that you actually identify the journalists who, you know, it was mostly the, you know, the hotel and everything around it?
I have experienced some this in some cases. So for example, I was invited to Brussels and Strasbourg to report on individual events. And usually in these cases, journalists were really instructed where they should go, who they can talk to.
So what then happened? So this story was reported on by Political Europe, who uncovered the story, and they cited a former employee of Black Cube and an internal source. And they also managed to link the operation to the company, and then it was actually discussed in the Knesset, where a member Tamar Zandberg called it an Israeli disgrace. Black Cube, of course, denied everything, but then in 2022, a similar thing happened. What you see here on the slide are two photos of two operatives who held interviews with people over Zoom. But what's important about the 2022, the pre-2022 election action is because it was COVID, a lot of it happened online, so there was a lot more online activity. And this included a bunch of fake identities on LinkedIn for human beings and for companies. It also included the Black Cube's own company website. Now, after the incident, Microsoft, or specifically LinkedIn, actually confirmed, based on the logs and the data that they checked, that this was Black Cube and that these operations were harmful, and they deleted all of these profiles along with the website, or sorry, the LinkedIn page for the actual Black Cube company. And they claimed, so Microsoft and LinkedIn, that Black Cube is responsible for the operation, and they actually took action. Now, what's important is, again, to understand that this is what is happening right now in Slovenia. We see the same thing. We see people with fake names, fake companies conducting interviews with leading questions. After the recordings are done, the online presence of these companies and these people disappear. The phone numbers are either disconnected or rerouted to a different service. And all of this, along with the information we have about the flight and the meeting taking place, makes us believe that this looks incredibly similar to Black Cube operations, and that the most plausible explanation of what's happening right now is that this company was in one way or another hired to do these things in Slovenia.
Okay, and now we have on a Zoom here who is a researcher from Israel who was also monitoring the action of Black Cube for quite some time. So here I'm giving the word to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll be brief because my colleagues here spoke really well and kind of covered most of the information. What I want to maybe focus a little bit more is about the what are Black Cube, like what the field they operate in. And it's important to understand it's a company that was founded by ex-intelligence officers, and it described itself as an veterans of an Israeli elite unit that operates in 75 countries, more than 75 countries around the world, hundreds of cases. It really wants to present itself as very connected to the intelligence apparatus and inspired by the board, for example. The board of the company itself is part of the product. We're talking about two former Mossad directors, Dagan and Alevi, and former Israeli police commissioner, Danino, former major general, Gio Island, who was seen in Slovenia, and former London Police Commissioner, Leopard. These kind of names are door openers to leaders around the world, to high elite representatives of companies, people that need a job to be done and can pay a lot of money. And that is actually the business model. The board usually creates a connection with like a state level halo and credibility, and the clients are believing they're hiring a Mossad-like operation that will give them exactly the information they need in order to suit their interest. We talked about the cases that were involved here, but it's important to say it also has a deterrence effect. Knowing former Mossad people are operating, in your case, give the clients a leverage over their opponents, and it's a scare tactic as well. In the same time, we know they operate also sometime with the Israeli government. The latest is around 2024 that we know, with Minister Amichai Shikli that was mentioned here with students in the US. Both cases were denied, though, on both sides, though different sources have claimed to have seen it, and it was published. And I'm mentioning that because usually Black Cube denies, or not confirming, not denies any involvement in anything, because as a method of protecting their business and their clients. Just now, when we talk about human intelligence, we need to understand it's a very, very gray zone and a field. As was said here before, for months they're planning the operation. They are mapping. There's actually 3 stages. They are mapping. They're doing opposition research. They identify targets, look for vulnerabilities. They study political and legal landscape in exactly where they are, and compiled like a research that later on can determine who's going to be the target that they're about to attack. Next, we talk about collection of information. It sounds very sterile, but it's actually a covered operation, including building entirely fictitious company, website, offices, profiles online and offline. Everything that will give them the opportunity to start creating connection and relationship with their targets. And usually while they're posing to be investors or filmmakers, journalists, recruiters, activists, they know how to operate in different grounds, including recruiting different private investigation companies on the field of where they are. And once the targeted are connected to the undercover operators, they start recording them, collect information. And if they're not able to collect information from the target, they collect information from their colleagues, from their family even, whatever is needed. After that, the compiled information become a new report and database to deploy the influence campaign, the third part. And the third part is, of course, the most important, because that is the part you want to get what you're trying to achieve. sometimes those parts are not even disclosed. There are still undercover, reaching the client, and the client know how to use this information for their benefit. But many times the third part is an influence campaign, and that is taking all the insight and information that was gathered and engineer a campaign that would make look the targeted people to be framed and to expose deeds and their nature, so-called, or in generally create a communication space and a public discourse that will benefit their clients. When it goes to election, it's most influenced and most sensitive, because many times, as we can see, just before the election, all those cases comes to life mysteriously to benefit this or another opponent. As said before, these kind of tactics, sometimes on the gray zone, but sometimes are actually criminal acts, as we've seen in Romania. And I will conclude and say these kind of things coming into life in democratic countries is something that is usually should create some worry and should be addressed. And I hope that the Slovenian election will be as safe and as fair as it can be.
And for the end, I just want to again repeat the facts. We are in the pre-election period in Slovenia. We have a proof of private plane with 4 Israeli people that later on we recognize 2 of them who are belonging to the Black Cube. We know what Black Cube is, and because of this, we are having some questions to the person that they were meeting. This is Janša, our ex-prime minister. So basically, my first question to him is, Janša, why did you bring a private, secret Israeli agency to Slovenia? My second question is, Janša, who is paying for this private secret agency from Israel? We know that that kind of procedure costs around 1 million euros. And the third question is, Janša, who is giving you favors and what did you promise to those people in the name of Slovenia? This is all from us at that stage, and if anyone has any questions, we will answer. Otherwise, we wish you a good day.
I guess there are no questions. Unfortunately, I cannot see the Zoom window. So if somebody wants to speak up, they can speak up.
Elena, if you have maybe a question. I guess we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.